If you'd told me I'd be attending my ex's wedding just months after he dumped me because I didn't fit his brand, I'd have laughed. But there I was, invited not out of kindness, but so he could parade his new, wealthy fiancée in front of me like a trophy. What he didn't expect. That I'd show up with a plus one who would quietly, completely flip the script. This isn't just a breakup story. It's about ego, revenge, and how the person you bring with you can say more in one moment than a narcissist can fake in a lifetime. Trust me, this one's worth hearing to the end. Brad and I were together for 4 years. 4 years of birthdays, holidays, late-night talks about dreams, fights over stupid things, and me constantly trying to be enough for him. I thought we were building something real. Turns out, I was just a stepping stone on his way to someone richer, shinier, more on brand. From day one, I always felt like I was living in Brad's shadow. He had this magnetic charm that drew people in, and left no space for anyone else. When we were with friends, conversations revolved around his accomplishments, his stories, his hot takes. It didn't matter if I had a new promotion or just something I was excited about, he always found a way to pivot the spotlight back to himself. And if I ever tried to speak up or disagree, I'd get a laugh and a "that's cute" in front of everyone, followed by some long-winded monologue where he'd explain why he was right. Every time I left a group gathering with him, I felt invisible, like I was just there to clap for his ego. Worse, he'd humiliate me in front of people, casually, with that faux friendly sarcasm that left everyone laughing while I just stood there, burning inside. One time I tried to share a story at a dinner party and he cut me off to correct the way I told it, then called me endearingly wrong while everyone chuckled. I smiled through it, but I went to the bathroom and cried for 10 minutes. He called me his ride or die, but I was mostly just the one driving, literally and emotionally. I supported him through 3 job changes, 1 failed startup, and a spiritual retreat that lasted 2 months and ended with him spending $1,500 on crystals. I stuck around because I loved him. I saw his flaws, but I also saw this little boy inside who just wanted to be admired. I wanted to be the person who really saw him. Stupid, right? The breakup wasn't explosive. It was worse, it was cold. Calculated. He took me to brunch, acting all weirdly formal, like we were on a business lunch. Then he hit me with it. I just think we're heading in different directions. I need someone who fits the vision I have for my future. Someone more aligned with my brand. My brand. It took me a second to realize he wasn't joking. I sat there with my mimosa midair, wondering how the hell the man I gave 4 years to could reduce our relationship to a failed PR campaign. I didn't even cry right away. I just sat there, stunned, watching him dig into his avocado toast like he hadn't just shattered me with that smug little smile. Later that night, I collapsed on my bathroom floor. I cried so hard my chest hurt. Not just because he left, but because I realized I never truly felt chosen. I was convenient, reliable, supportive, but never enough. And then, of course, he moved on. Quickly. Suspiciously quickly. 3 months after the breakup, I got a cream-colored envelope in the mail. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Or maybe one of those mailers for a wedding expo. But nope, there it was, in all its self-congratulatory glory, an invitation to Brad's wedding. I stared at it for a solid 5 minutes. It was printed on thick, glossy cardstock that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. The script font practically screamed, "We're rich, fabulous, and better than you. Brad and Juliana Elise van der Wells." That's how it was written. Full name. Like she was royalty. And then I saw the kicker: join us for a night of elegance, celebration, and love at the Belmont estate. If you don't know what that is, imagine the kind of place where influencers fake surprise engagements and rich couples spend 6 figures on flowers alone. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. I mean, we had just broken up. And now he was marrying someone else, someone with a name that sounded like she came with a trust fund and a horse. I googled her. Big mistake. Her Instagram was a highlight reel of yachts, vineyard tours, and perfectly filtered selfies with captions like "grateful for the journey." She was beautiful, blonde, and oozed old money. The kind of woman who wears linen unironically and probably says things like "I'll have my assistant handle it." I couldn't stop scrolling. It was like watching the life I was supposed to have, but with her in it. My stomach twisted when I saw a picture of Brad and Juliana holding hands at the exact beach where he and I had our second anniversary. He even used the same damn caption, "Where love lives." And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just a wedding invite. This was a power move. He wanted me to see it. To see her. To see everything he'd upgraded to. He knew I'd open that envelope and spiral. That's what narcissists do, they feed on attention, even from their exes. But the worst part? He included a handwritten note, "Would love to have you there. It would mean a lot. Feel free to bring a guest." I read it over and over, trying to decode the message. Would mean a lot to who, Brad? You? Your ego? Was this supposed to be some twisted peace offering? Or were you just dying to watch me stand in the back of your golden hour photos looking like I lost? I almost tore it up. But then a thought hit me. A sharp, clear, vengeful thought. What if I actually went? And not just went, what if I brought someone that would completely flip the script? Because if he wanted a show, I could give him one. Okay, so once I decided I was going to the wedding, I knew I couldn't just roll in solo. That's exactly what Brad wanted, to watch me standing awkwardly in the corner while he flaunted his luxury wife-to-be and probably gave some smug speech about finding your true path. No. I wasn't going to be the sad ex. I was going to be unforgettable. Enter Leo. Leo wasn't just hot. He was refined, the kind of guy who doesn't talk about money, but you just know he's doing very well. Think quiet watches, clean suits, and a kind of stillness that makes people lean in when he speaks. We met a couple months after the breakup at a mutual friend's birthday. At first, I thought he was too put together for me. But he had this calming presence that made me feel safe. Like I didn't have to try so hard to be interesting or impressive. He actually listened. Like, really listened. He knew all about the Brad saga, every ugly detail. And when I told him about the wedding invitation, he said, without even flinching, "Let's go." Just like that. I asked him if he was sure. I didn't want to drag him into some petty ex-drama. He just smiled and said, "Let's make it a night they'll never forget." So, yeah. I had my +1. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, I didn't stalk Juliana's Instagram anymore. I didn't cry. I focused on finding the perfect dress. Not to compete with her, God no, but to feel like me. The me that had gotten so lost trying to fit into Brad's picture-perfect world. I chose a sleek, deep emerald gown that made my eyes pop and hugged my body in all the right ways. Not flashy. Not desperate. Just strong. The night before the wedding, I barely slept. My anxiety was ping-ponging between "you've got this" and "what the hell are you doing?" But Leo was calm as ever. He picked me up in a classic black car, not flashy, just elegant. Like him. When I walked down the steps and he looked up at me, his eyes widened and he said, "Brad's not ready for this." That moment alone almost made it all worth it. But trust me. The best part hadn't even happened yet. The wedding was held at the Belmont estate, this over-the-top, castle-looking venue that Brad used to joke about when we were together. Only tech millionaires and washed-up reality stars get married there, he'd say. I guess Juliana's daddy's money changed his tune. We pulled up to the valet, and I swear, time slowed down. Leo stepped out first in a tailored navy suit, his presence so sharp I heard one of the guests near the entrance actually gasp. He walked around the car to open my door and offered me his hand like we were royalty. I felt like we'd just stepped out of a movie. People noticed. Like, everyone noticed. As we walked through the grand entrance, I could feel heads turning. Whispers. Stares. The kind of vibe that made you wish you could bottle the moment and use it whenever your self-esteem dipped. I was expecting maybe one or two polite nods. Instead, people moved for us. Someone even stepped aside and offered me a glass of champagne before we got to the check-in table. I could tell the staff thought we were some VIPs from the groom's side. I didn't correct them. Then, I saw them. Brad and Juliana. Right there, in the middle of the cocktail area, holding court like it was a press conference. She was wearing this extravagant white rehearsal dress, lace and pearls, and probably a name brand I couldn't pronounce. Brad was in a cream tux, grinning wide, doing his classic two-handed shake with every guest like he was running for office. Juliana was pretty, sure. But she looked stiff. Like a porcelain doll someone forgot to unwrap properly. And Brad? He looked too confident. The kind of confidence that said he thought he'd already won. Until he saw me. He blinked. Then stared. And stared some more. It was like watching a glitch in a simulation. He tried to recover, smiling with that fake, tight-lipped grin he always used when he was uncomfortable. I gave him a wave. Small. Effortless. Like I barely recognized him. Juliana leaned in, whispered something to him, and Brad responded with what looked like a very uncomfortable laugh. Leo leaned down to my ear and whispered, "That's your ex? He looks like he's holding in a sneeze." I nearly choked on my champagne. We hadn't even been there 5 minutes, and already the energy had shifted. Brad had planned this wedding to be his victory lap. But suddenly, we were the ones getting all the attention. And the night was only just beginning. So there we were, me and Leo, mingling like we'd always belonged in that world of silk napkins and silent waiters. I could feel Brad watching us from across the room, probably wondering how the girl he dumped with a brunch mimosa ended up glowing like this. It didn't take long before he made his way over. "Hey, wow, you look different," Brad said, eyes darting between my face and Leo's hand resting on the small of my back. Different? Really, Brad? That's the opener? Yeah, heartbreak will do that, I said with a smile, and Leo gave the softest chuckle. Brad introduced himself to Leo, who just nodded coolly. Didn't reach for a handshake. Didn't smile. Just looked at him like he was trying to remember where he parked his Prius. That one small moment? Pure, silent dominance. Then Juliana appeared, wearing that artificial calm I recognized from women who never hear no. She gave me the once-over and that little closed-lip smile women use when they're dying to say something cutting but want to keep it classy. "You must be Emily," she said, drawing out my name like it had a bad aftertaste. "Brad's told me so much about you." "Oh really?" I tilted my head. "Because he never mentioned you. At all." Boom. Brad coughed. Juliana blinked like she was buffering. Then came the part one didn't expect. Brad actually leaned in and said, loud enough for both Leo and Juliana to hear, "I'm really glad you came. I thought it would be healing. For everyone. Healing. Like this was group therapy and not a $200,000 flex fest where he was parading his trophy fiancée like a status symbol." I took a slow sip of my champagne and locked eyes with him. Yeah, it's been healing. I've never been more sure of the bullet I dodged. Leo turned toward Brad and added, "Honestly, man, I was worried it'd be uncomfortable for her. But now I see what she was dealing with, I just feel lucky." Juliana's head whipped toward Brad. Brad's jaw tightened. I smiled sweetly and said, "Anyway, we should go find our seats. But congrats, really. Juliana, your dress is ambitious." And with that, we walked away. I didn't even have to look back to know the damage had landed. I could feel it. If I thought the awkward tension was over, I was sorely mistaken. We took our seats under the tented reception area, where fairy lights hung like a Pinterest dream, and a string quartet played Coldplay like it was Mozart. I wasn't even mad, it was beautiful. Obnoxiously beautiful. Brad really went all out, and it wasn't hard to tell this wasn't on his dime. As we sat down, I could feel the stares. Some were polite curiosity. Others were flat out whispering while side-eyeing me. Brad had clearly talked about me to these people. Probably painted me as the ex who couldn't handle his ambition or held him back. I didn't care. Not tonight. Dinner was served, lobster tail and filet mignon, naturally, and everything was going fine until it was time for the toasts. Best man goes first. Harmless. A few frat bro stories, some generic jokes about Brad being a big personality, which made half the room laugh and the other half tighten their smiles. Then came Brad. He took the mic like he was giving a TED talk. "Thank you all for being here," he began, standing with that fake humility pose, hands folded, head slightly bowed, like he was blessed by the universe and just had to share the moment. He talked about love. Growth. The journey. And then, like the smug little gremlin he is, he pivoted. "I've learned a lot from my past relationships," Brad said, and I felt Leo stiffen next to me. "They've taught me patience, resilience, and most of all, to never settle." There was a pause. A long, awkward pause. I could feel the air shift. People knew. He wasn't just being vague. That was a direct shot. At me. And then he had the audacity to look right at our table. Right at me. Juliana, beaming, clearly thought it was romantic. The rest of the room? Not so much. A couple people actually looked uncomfortable. But before I could even process the punch to the gut, Leo leaned in and whispered, "Want me to respond to that?" I blinked. "What?" He gave me a reassuring smile. "Watch." He stood up. He stood up. The crowd hushed as Leo raised his glass and said, "If I could just say something real quick." Brad looked caught off guard. Juliana looked irritated. Leo cleared his throat. "I didn't know I'd be giving a toast tonight, but since the groom opened the floor for personal growth stories, I figured why not." The entire tent turned their heads. "I just want to say how lucky I feel," Leo continued, locking eyes with me. "To be with someone who's been through hell and still shows up with grace. Emily is the most grounded, intelligent, and emotionally mature woman I've ever met. And unlike some people," he looked at Brad, "she never needed to tear others down to feel like she was rising." Dead. Silence. Then, a single clink of a fork on a glass. Followed by another. And then the room erupted in applause. Brad looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. "Juliana?" I'm pretty sure she stopped clapping before she even started. I turned to Leo, stunned. He just shrugged and said, "Couldn't let that slide." And in that moment, I knew, I won. After Leo's impromptu toast detonated in the middle of the reception, you could practically hear the air hissing out of Brad's ego. He laughed, one of those forced, high-pitched laughs people do when they're trying to pretend they're not seething. Juliana gave him a tight smile and whispered something in his ear. He nodded, but his eyes were still locked on Leo like he couldn't believe someone just out-alphaed him in his own kingdom. We tried to move on. Really. Dessert was being served, people returned to their conversations, and the DJ started playing the kind of safe pop music that rich people think is vibey. Then Brad made his second mistake of the night. He approached our table again. "Hey," he said, plastering on a smile that could have cracked his face. "Mind if I borrow Emily for a minute? Just to talk?" Leo didn't even blink. He turned to me and said, "You okay with that?" I was curious. So I nodded. Brad led me toward the edge of the garden, away from the tent, where the music was softer and the fairy lights faded into the trees. He stopped walking and turned to face me, arms crossed like I was the one who needed to explain something. "I just want to clear the air," he said. I raised an eyebrow. "Oh? About your little never settle speech?" "That wasn't about you," he lied instantly. I scoffed. "Brad. You stared me dead in the eye while you said it." He shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I didn't think you'd actually come. I invited you to be polite." I laughed, cold and sharp. "You invited me to gloat." To rub your lifestyle and your trophy wife in my face. But sorry, Brad. The pity party got cancelled the second I walked in with someone who doesn't need to prove anything. That's when the mask slipped. You think you're better than me now? He snapped, the fake charm dissolving. You bring your little finance boyfriend and act like you've won something? Oh, I have, I said. Peace. Self-worth. And a front row seat to your unraveling. He looked like he wanted to scream, but instead he clenched his jaw and said, You always thought you were smarter than everyone. That's why I left. You were suffocating. No, Brad, I said, stepping closer. You left because I stopped feeding your delusions. You needed someone who'd worship you. Not someone who'd tell you the truth. And then, because I couldn't help myself, I added, and from the look on Juliana's face tonight? You're gonna run out of worship real fast. I turned around and walked away, heart pounding, hands shaking, but lighter than I'd felt in years. Back at the table, Leo stood when I returned. You good? Better than good, I said. He's unraveling. And I didn't even have to raise my voice. He smiled. Let's go dance. And under the twinkling lights of a wedding I was never meant to enjoy, I danced with a man who didn't just have my back, he saw me. And Brad? Brad watched from across the floor, stuck in a fairy tale he built for himself, slowly realizing the prince costume didn't fit anymore. So there we were, me and Leo, mid-dance, his hand on my waist, the music soft and slow. I swear it felt like a movie moment. Until I noticed the look Juliana was giving us from across the room. It was the kind of glare you can feel in your spine. Her expression was a perfect mix of panic, confusion, and embarrassment. She didn't look like a blushing bride in love. She looked like a woman realizing she might have married a carefully packaged mistake. I tried to brush it off, but a few songs later, while Leo had gone to grab us drinks, she marched straight up to me like she was walking a runway made of broken glass. Emily, she said. No smile. No pleasantries. Just my name, sharp and cold. Juliana, I replied, keeping my tone even. She didn't waste time. What exactly is your goal here? I blinked. Excuse me? This little spectacle, she waved toward where Leo was talking to someone near the bar. What's the point? You show up with your arm candy and try to steal attention on my wedding day? It's pathetic. Oh. So she was spiraling. I gave her a look that said I wasn't here for the pageant. I didn't come to steal attention, Juliana. I came because your fiancé invited me. But now I'm realizing maybe he didn't tell you why. She flinched. What are you talking about? He invited me as a flex. He wanted me to see how far he's come. To prove something. Probably to himself more than to me. She looked rattled. That's not true. Isn't it? I said, tilting my head. He gave a toast about never settling and stared right at me. That wasn't for you. That was about me. You really think I'm the one making this weird? Juliana's breath hitched. He said you were toxic. Controlling. Obsessive. I actually laughed. Of course he did. Brad needs a villain to feel like the hero. She hesitated. Her perfect posture faltered for just a second. I didn't know about any of that. Him inviting you. The toast. There it was, the crack. I leaned in slightly, keeping my voice calm but firm. Look. I'm not here to ruin your day. But if you think you married a man who's over his past, you might want to check which version of you he's selling next time he needs to feel like a winner. Juliana didn't respond. She just stood there, breathing hard, eyes flicking toward Brad, who was now across the room talking to some of his friends like nothing was wrong. I walked away. I didn't wait for her to gather herself. I didn't need her approval or sympathy. But as I made my way back to Leo, I heard it, Juliana's voice, sharp and rising behind me. Brad. We need to talk. Now. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. Because the fairy tale had officially cracked. Brad must have known something was up the second Juliana marched toward him, because I watched his whole posture change from cool guy holding court to teen caught sneaking out past curfew in about half a second. She didn't wait. She didn't whisper. She didn't smile. She grabbed his wrist, not roughly, but with purpose, and said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Outside. Now. It was the first time all night the room truly got quiet. They stepped just beyond the patio, into a little side courtyard with ivy-covered walls and those romantic string lights. Except nothing about what followed was romantic. Not even a little. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, okay, maybe I was standing in the perfect place at the perfect time, but Juliana's voice carried. You invited your ex to our wedding without telling me, she snapped. Brad tried to laugh it off, but even from a distance, it was clear it wasn't landing. It was just a gesture. I wanted to be the bigger person. Juliana's reply cut through the music, *T, Brad. You wanted to parade me around in front of your past like I was some kind of upgrade. Now, that got some heads turning. People were definitely watching. A couple of Brad's groomsmen were frozen mid-cocktail sip. An older couple near the cake table looked horrified in the way only rich people do, like scandal is a stain you can't dry clean out. Brad was floundering. Can we please talk about this later? No, Juliana hissed. You gave a toast to your ego. You humiliated me in front of our families. And you brought a woman here to compete with me on our wedding day. Do you know how insane that sounds? I should have felt bad. I really should have. But instead, I felt seen. Vindicated. Like every gaslit moment in my 4-year relationship with Brad had just been dragged into the light in front of an audience. Leo returned with 2 drinks just as Brad threw up his hands and stormed off in the other direction, leaving Juliana standing there with mascara slightly smudged and rage still simmering on her perfect face. What did I miss? Leo asked, handing me my drink. I took a slow sip and smiled. Just Brad getting emotionally pantsed in front of 50 of his closest friends and sponsors. Leo smirked. Sounds like the highlight of the night. But the best part? We weren't done yet. Because Brad wasn't going to go quietly, and neither was Juliana. If I thought the drama was winding down after Brad's public dressing down, I was very wrong. The energy in the room had shifted. People were whispering in clusters, eyes flicking toward Brad and Juliana like they were watching a slow-motion car crash. And honestly? That's exactly what it was, except the bride was now gripping the steering wheel and aiming it right at his reputation. Juliana didn't retreat. She didn't go to the bridal suite to cry or fix her makeup. Nope. She walked straight up to the mic. And tapped it. Hard. Everyone froze. Hi, she said, voice steady, eyes scanning the crowd like she wasn't just speaking, she was commanding. Thank you all for coming. I know this is unconventional. But I'd like to say a few words. Brad, now lingering near the bar, drink in hand, looked like he was about to choke on his own spit. Juliana continued. When I agreed to marry Brad, I believed a lot of things. I believed we were partners. I believed we were building a future. But tonight, I realized I'd been starring in someone else's performance. You could hear a pin drop. Juliana's voice wavered just a little, but it only made her sound more real. I wasn't told his ex would be here. I wasn't told he invited her so she could witness what he sees as his glow up. And I definitely wasn't prepared for him to use our wedding toast as a passive-aggressive dig at someone he claimed to be over. She paused. Looked at me. Then said, Emily, I'm sorry you were brought here under false pretenses. I just blinked. It was the last thing I expected. But it felt, weirdly healing. Juliana turned back to the mic and Brad, she looked at him directly now, if you needed closure, you should have asked for therapy, not booked a venue. Oof. A few gasps. A stifled laugh. And one visible spit take from a guy near the gift table. Brad opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, but Juliana wasn't done. This day was supposed to be about love. Trust. Moving forward. But I refused to start my future based on a lie or a performance. So. She exhaled. I'm not leaving with a husband tonight. But at least I'm leaving with clarity. Then she walked off the stage. Mic dropped. Ceremony over. Ego shattered. The room didn't erupt. It didn't need to. The silence said it all. Brad stood there, red-faced and motionless, while the crowd slowly, awkwardly, began to clap. A few people started to gather their things. Others just stared at him, waiting to see what his next move would be. Leo leaned in and whispered, "Well, that's going to be hard to top." I laughed. For the first time in weeks, maybe months. A real, deep laugh. Juliana had just stolen her own show, and taken Brad's narrative with her. You'd think after Juliana basically cancelled her own wedding on a live mic, Brad would have taken the L with a shred of dignity. But no. That would have required self-awareness. And Brad's ego doesn't do quiet exits. As the applause for Juliana's walk-off died down and guests started murmuring about what the hell just happened, Brad decided it was time for his moment. He climbed up on the small platform by the DJ booth, glass in hand, tie loosened, trying to play it cool. Okay, he said, slurring just slightly, everyone chill, alright? We're still gonna have a good time tonight. Open bar still running. It was like watching someone try to tape a broken champagne flute back together and pretend it was never shattered. A few polite claps. Mostly confusion. Then he looked around the room and, like the emotional grenade he is, said, "Look, Juliana and we're passionate people. That's what makes our connection real. We fight, we love, we." His voice cracked. "We don't always see eye to eye, but that's life, right?" Someone coughed. Someone else straight up laughed. And as for all this drama, Brad gestured toward me, and I felt Leo step just slightly closer. Protective. Calm. Like always. Let's not act like this wasn't inevitable. Some people just can't let go. Oh hell no. I stood up. I didn't plan to. I didn't want to be part of his circus. But I couldn't let him rewrite the story, again. I let go, Brad, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. The second you made our breakup about your personal branding. The second you turned love into a campaign. Brad's smile twitched. See? Right there. Always with the drama. Leo stepped in then. One hand on my shoulder. Calm. Steady. Dangerous in the way only confident men can be. My guy, he said, his voice low and cool, take the loss. You had your chance to be the hero tonight. But you made yourself the cautionary tale. The crowd wasn't clapping anymore. They were watching. Some horrified. Some entertained. All of them realizing the fairy tale was now a full-blown Greek tragedy. Brad mumbled something, probably a comeback he'd been saving for months, but no one was listening. He climbed down from the platform, stumbled slightly, and disappeared through the back door, leaving his almost wife, his almost marriage, and his carefully polished image in shambles. And as the room began to buzz again with the kind of disbelief people love to gossip about, I leaned into Leo and whispered, "Was that too much?" He grinned. It was perfect. We didn't stay much longer after that. We said polite goodbyes to the three people who weren't too shell-shocked to speak, then made our way to the car. I swear I could feel the entire estate watching us walk out, not in judgment, but in awe. Not because I caused a scene. But because I survived one. By the next morning, the wedding that wasn't had already turned into a full-blown social media wildfire. Someone had filmed Juliana's speech, of course they had. And someone else had posted a clip of Brad's cringy DJ booth disaster. By noon, both videos were circulating in group chats, Instagram stories, even a private Facebook group I didn't know existed called People Who Survived Brad. I wish I were joking. I hadn't posted anything. Neither had Leo. We didn't need to. But the texts started rolling in. From mutual friends. From people I hadn't talked to in years. From one of Brad's groomsmen, who simply wrote, "Holy sh*t. That was art." Apparently, Juliana had packed up her things and left the estate before the staff had even cleared the dessert plates. Her parents had a private car take her to a friend's lake house, and word was she wasn't speaking to Brad at all. Not even through her assistant. But the real twist? People were taking her side. Brad had spent years carefully cultivating this image, self-made, charming, polished. But one night, one mic drop, and the illusion cracked. People started telling stories. About how he'd tried to flirt with a bridesmaid at the rehearsal dinner. About how he'd pitched himself to someone's uncle as a personal branding consultant when he was actually unemployed. About how he made Juliana sign a prenup she didn't want, right before the welcome dinner. His whole empire of ego? It was burning. And I wasn't cheering. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't even smug. I was free. I sat on Leo's couch, legs tucked under me, drinking coffee in one of his hoodies, scrolling through the aftermath like I was watching the season finale of a show I used to star in. Leo came in with more coffee and sat beside me. Still trending? I handed him my phone. He's got his own meme template now. That's new. He looked and snorted. Oh. Let's not act like this wasn't inevitable, is getting roasted. I almost feel bad, I said, meaning it more than I expected. But Leo? He just raised an eyebrow. Don't, he said. He threw himself a party to watch you lose. Instead, he watched you win. That's not on you. And he was right. Brad had built a wedding around proving he was better off without me. Instead, he proved why I left. I thought that would be the end of it, Brad humiliated, Juliana gone, the internet doing its thing while I quietly moved on with my life. But karma? She wasn't done. About a week later, I got a message. Not from Brad. Not from Juliana. From Juliana's sister. It was short, polite, and had the kind of tone only someone raised by a PR-obsessed family could pull off. Hi Emily. I know this is out of the blue, but Juliana asked me to reach out. She wanted to thank you for being honest with her, and for holding your ground. She's not ready to talk to a lot of people, but she said she sees everything more clearly now, and part of that is thanks to you. Also, she said you looked stunning, and way too classy for Brad's nonsense. Her words, not mine. Wishing you the best. I just stared at the screen. I hadn't expected that. Honestly, I'd assumed Juliana would either pretend I didn't exist or quietly seethe about how I ruined her day. But this? This was grace. This was a woman who got played, saw the game, and chose to respect the other player instead of blame her. I messaged back a simple thank you. Told her I hoped she was doing okay. That she deserved better, because she did. And then, something really weird happened. I cried. Not the loud, ugly kind. Just soft, steady tears while I sat at the kitchen counter and let everything actually hit me. I had spent so long bracing for Brad's next move, trying to anticipate how he'd hurt me or twist the truth or make me feel small. I didn't realize until that message came in that I'd been carrying all of it, still. But now? It was gone. Brad didn't win. He didn't get the fairy tale or the applause or the admiration. And more importantly, he didn't get to keep the power he held over me for so long. I wiped my cheeks, laughed a little at myself, and texted Leo. Hey. Dinner on me tonight. I've got something to celebrate. He replied in under 30 seconds. You finally blocked Brad on everything? That's my girl. Chinese or Italian? Surprise me. Just no brunch places. LOL. Deal. And just like that, the final thread tying me to my past snapped, and it felt good. No closure speech. No grand finale. Just a quiet, powerful choice to stop letting someone else's broken ego define my worth. It's been a few months since the wedding that wasn't, and honestly, my life has never felt quieter, and I mean that in the best possible way. No more dramatic texts. No more cryptic Instagram posts meant to bait me. No more wondering if I'd ever get to be the one who walked away with my dignity intact. I didn't just survive Brad. I outgrew him. And not just him, the version of myself that needed his approval, the version that measured her worth by how much she could tolerate, how small she could make herself to fit inside someone else's narrative. That girl? She's gone. The new me? She makes decisions based on peace. She wears whatever makes her feel good. She doesn't question if she's too much or not enough. She doesn't shrink. Leo's still in my life. And no, before you ask, we're not rushing into anything. That's the beauty of it. There's no pressure. No games. Just comfort. Real conversation. Mutual respect. He brings me coffee every morning and never forgets how I take it. He doesn't need to be the center of attention. He lets me take up space. We laugh a lot. We sleep in on weekends. We've been talking about taking a trip somewhere I've never been, not to post about it, not to impress anyone, just to exist together somewhere quiet. It's weird how life softens after you stop trying to make everyone else comfortable. And Brad? The last I heard, he was trying to rebrand. Again. This time as some kind of relationship coach. A guy who couldn't hold on to one honest connection, now charging people to fix theirs. You can't make this sh*t up. But I don't laugh at it anymore. I just let it go. Because now, when I look in the mirror, I don't see someone who got left behind. I see someone who finally stepped out of someone else's spotlight, and realized the sun feels way better. If you're still reading this, first of all, bless you. This started as a revenge wedding post and turned into a whole damn personal evolution saga. But if you're here because you're in something that feels a little too familiar, this last part is for you. I stayed with Brad way longer than I should have, not because I didn't know better, but because I thought if I just tried harder, if I was just a little more patient, a little more impressive, a little less me, maybe he'd finally see my worth. But here's the brutal truth I had to learn the hard way: if someone only values you when you're making them look good, they don't value you at all. They value what you do for them, not who you are. Don't shrink yourself to make someone else feel tall. Don't confuse attention with affection, or control with love, or performative praise with partnership. You are not a supporting character in someone else's origin story. You're the main character in your own. And if you ever find yourself standing in a room where someone you used to love is trying to make you feel small, smile. Because they just told on themselves. They're still stuck in a game you no longer have to play. The most powerful thing I ever did wasn't walking out of that wedding with Leo on my arm. It wasn't the clapback, or the dress, or the way people looked at me. It was waking up the next morning and knowing, with every fiber of my being, that I was free. Free from needing validation. Free from carrying someone else's insecurities. Free from the idea that closure has to come from the person who hurt you. You can write your own ending. Hell, you can write a better story. So if you're still in that place, the one where your heart is heavy, where you're second-guessing your worth, where you're wondering if it's even possible to come out whole, I promise you, it is. And not just whole. Stronger. Louder. Freer. Happier. And one day, you'll look back at the version of you who stayed too long, who cried too hard, who doubted herself too often, and you'll love her. Not because she was perfect, but because she survived. And that's more badass than any walk down the aisle could ever be.